All right, further comment?
Good morning. My name is Jonathan Bishop. I'm the Chief Deputy Director at the State Water Board. I appreciate the opportunity to provide some short comments. The water boards and I personally appreciate the confidence that this proposal indicates in the water board, but the 23 positions requested by Dogger relate to expertise that is found at Dogger and not at the water boards. Making a shift at this time could jeopardize our agreement with US EPA to bring the UIC program into compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act, given the joint nature of the plan and the short time frame that we're working under. I'd like to also comment on the trailer bill language A. The description seems to us to be overly broad. The water board and Doggers have a cooperative working relationship in regards to underground injection permitting and aquifer exemptions. But if the legislature is interested in providing water boards with an explicit role in the injection well permits and aquifer exemptions, we would suggest that the approach described in pending legislation AB 356 and SB 454, which requires water board concurrence prior to Dogger's submittal of a proposal for aquifer exemption to the US EPA, would be an appropriate path forward.
So the language in those bills is something that the water board's comfortable with?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. All right, thank you, Mr. Bishop, for coming. Further comment?
May I ask, Mr. Bishop?
Absolutely, absolutely. Go ahead.
Mr. Bishop, was that in reference to the trailer bill language on codifying the water board's implicit veto power? So I'm sure that might be something we'll discuss in conference committee.
Great, thank you.
And maybe, I'm sure Ms. Freeman's taking notes on that particular item. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Will Shopson, Department of Finance again. I haven't seen the language for the trailer bill, but just would like to flag some concerns that B and C particularly appear like they could create at least funding pressures or new costs that staff recommendation doesn't appear to include funding for.
All right. LAO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ross Brown with the LAO. With respect to the request for additional positions, we'd just like to flag an issue between sort of short-term workload and ongoing workload. And while we agree with the need for additional positions in both cases, we think the justification provided by the administration wasn't quite there on sort of the difference between short-term and ongoing workload, and we recommend the legislature adopt supplemental reporting language that would provide more information about differences in ongoing workload based on sort of updated information. With respect to the request for the oil and gas data management system, we recommend the legislature modify the proposed budget bill language to require DOC to notify the JLBC when it receives formal approval of the estimated timelines and costs. The scope, timelines, and costs for the project are uncertain because the department hasn't completed the Department of Technology review process. And the legislature may want to ask the department to comment on the expected timelines and costs for this project.
Okay, on the management system.
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't get there yet.
Oh, excuse me.
Thank you for that.
Sorry
That's
about
good. All right, anticipating. Yes, ma'am.
Waiting for the data management system.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll deal with that separately. All right. Is there public comment on this issue and the recommendations? Please come forward. We have mics on either side.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members. Brian White on behalf of the Western States Petroleum Association. We support the administration's budget change proposals for Dogger, the State Water Board, and DWR, where the purpose is to enhance the UIC program and provide necessary resources to complete ongoing UIC program review and reform. As noted, the state has provided US EPA a comprehensive work plan, which outlines new regulations and program reforms that are underway to address the concerns that have been raised. In particular, the proposed BCPs for Dogger and the State Water Board will provide the needed positions to help meet the timeline established by US EPA, including additional investigation of oil and gas operations and wastewater disposal. As a result of this, we think this would help Dogger comply with the statutory mandates that have been mentioned, enacted under SB 4 and SB 1281, authored by Senator Pavley. That being said, we do not agree with the committee staff's recommendation to deny or limit the amount of funding that they're requesting. We think we think that's needed for Dogger to actually comprehensively manage its UIC program, which will only result in continued criticism of the issues if they don't get the funding that they need. It should be noted that this funding is actually coming from an industry oil fee that we pay for, so that should not be underestimated. WISPA also supports the DWR request to get the data management. We know there's concerns about that with regards to privacy, to get the correct amount of information that needed to comply with 1281. If there are other tools that are out there that would help meet that issue, we're open to looking at it. But right now, our folks don't have the data that they need to comply with that information because it's very complicated, as the director noted. Last, there are a number of other committee staff recommendations that we are still reviewing, but in particular, we have significant concerns about the codifying the trailer bill language that would give State Water Board veto authority over Dogger permitting activities, particularly as it relates to aquifer exemptions. We recognize the concerns that have been raised about the issue, and we're continuing to work through it. But we think that the Dogger's management of these injection wells, as suggested, and the State Water Board overseeing them, would be very complicated and unnecessary. Dogger and State Water Board have a plan in place that's set forth, and they're trying to meet those timelines. By codifying this language, it's only going to complicate the matter with no additional safety protections. And so for those reasons, we don't agree with that particular part of the staff recommendation. We do think that the Assembly has left the item open, so if this does become part of the package, it's going to be in conference. So that's just something to be noted. And last, for the reasons that we've stated before, we think moving forward with the administration's BCPs is the right thing to do. It's reasonable. There are a lot of questions that need to be answered. I think the department's doing a good job in trying to do that, but to complicate matters by throwing other language in and other reviews is just not needed at this time. So we thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Further comment?
Good morning, Madam Chair. P. Anthony Thomas, representing the California Independent Petroleum Association, echoing some of my some of my colleagues' comments. SIPA is here to support the administration's proposal to fund the positions requested for the UIC-related activities. SIPA would like to also voice our support for the acquisition of the modern data management system. These are resources needed to meet the aggressive timeline set forth in the work plan approved by the U.S. EPA, and we are convinced that a failure to provide these additional resources, Madam Chair and members, will undermine Dogger to reach their goals of compliance with applicable state as well as federal laws. If I could, Madam Chair, I'd like to quickly comment on the staff's recommendations, which we are in opposition to. And if these recommendations are implemented, we feel it would underfund, and ultimately be detrimental to the state's progress to comply with the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act. It is in the best interest of all stakeholders, the state of California, policymakers, as well as industry, to see Dogger succeed in their mission and, of course, move all these issues behind them and continue to work with the Water Board, not necessarily for the Water Board. Also to obtain the proper exemptions as determined by the board, as well as the EPA. Staff's recommendations do not move us in this direction, in our opinion. The vision has come under immense scrutiny, and frankly, some deserved and some not so deserved. Senator Pavley adequately and eloquently pointed out many of the misgivings of this particular organization. However, I would like to state that this organization, the current leadership, is now headed by a scientist, not a lawyer. And he is approaching this, no offense to lawyers, so I apologize for that, Madam Chair.
I don't take it personally.
Love teachers.
I was a teacher, but married to a lawyer who used to teach them. So
I don't want to offend him either, Madam Chair. But he is approaching this in a very scientific way, and we are fully supportive of the actions of the NECADM team as well as Dr. Bolin. Providing the Water Board with responsibilities that have traditionally been Doggers is counterproductive, and I believe, Madam Chair, requires federal approval. According to the U.S. EPA regulations, shifting responsibilities and duties under the primacy agreement will require federal approval. This would also entail notifications to major newspapers, 30-day notice, public hearings, statements from state agencies for the reasons for the change, and in some cases, Madam Chair, documentation from the state's Attorney General. These positions relate to oil and gas permitting, monitoring, and compliance. The recommendation to move these positions to the Water Board that come under Dogger's jurisdiction is a violation, is our understanding, under the primacy agreement, without federal approval. If these positions are carried out, we are not sure that you could lawfully execute those assigned duties. We are not sure if the state has interfaced with the EPA in regards to this shift or not. The memorandum of agreement dating back to the 1980s between Dogger and the Water Board says, and I quote, "The regional board shall determine if the draft UIC permit and monitoring requirements provide protection to ground and surface waters have present or anticipated beneficial uses. If the draft requirements are not adequate, the regional board shall, within 30 days, propose conditions or revisions which would satisfy regional board concerns." Dogger now will not issue final permit requirements until the regional board concerns have been satisfied. In other words, Madam Chair, the Water Board has had veto power over UIC project permits for decades. It is clear that the proposal will cause delays and slow Dogger's efforts to move into compliance, and it is not clear that this is solving any of the issues before us. As I close,
I'm going to ask you to, yes, good.
as I close, Dogger has already obtained Water Board approval before submitting an aquifer exemption application to US EPA, and this is the process they are undergoing currently. Current statutes require Dogger to be a data manager. Current statutes require Dogger to be a data manager and the public purveyor of information. But if the proposal stifles this, we're in the same position that we would be in today. So we would ask that this be approved. This would also be an oil fee funded system, as my counterpart has alluded to allow Dogger to more accountable and, of course, transparent to the public. The oil industry is willing to foot the bill to allow it to be more efficient and transparent and accountable regulation. We thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Grinberg, I'm with Clean Water Action. What's clear from tracking the history of Dogger and the UIC program is that there is a real need for reform of this program and more accountability. While the new leadership in Dogger, Mr. Boland, we do believe has great intentions and wants to move this in the right direction, we understand the desire of certain members in the legislature for that increased accountability. For that reason, we do support the trailer language, especially for the audit and the independent review. Dogger and the Water Board has been working to figure out their various roles, and we believe that there's a real need to take a hard look at this and who should be taking on different parts of this program. As far as right now, where the money goes and who should be taking on these specific roles, I believe that's a question that needs further vetting and should be taken a hard look at it. In addition, we do support the other pieces of the trailer language. The well logs being public is a big priority of Clean Water Action and numerous other groups, including Community Water Center and groups that have been working on it for years.
Okay.
With that, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Alio for the Environmental Working Group. Senator Papley said this was an agency, was more permitting agency rather than regulatory. I agree. I would go further and say this was an agency that was captured by the oil and gas industry for many, many decades. Reform was commenced by Supervisor Elena Miller and Director of Conservation Derek Chernow. That was truncated in 2011, and we had some stalling, but then the legislature came in and started us on a reform path too. I think the current management understands the need for reform there. To that end, I strongly support the trailer bill language and the audit request. I think we need to go through an independent outside source needs to look at this. Dogger's remaking themselves through legislation internally, and so I think some outside help might be really good to make sure we do the right thing and spend the money wisely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further comment? All right, hearing none, let's go back to staff recommendations. Senator Nielsen.
Madam Chair, there's been a lot of discussion here. I want to make a point. Over the last, it's been talked about for a long time, going back to the 09 water discussions, but particularly coming forward to groundwater legislation of late. This is very sweeping policy and very sweeping intervention of government in the lives of each of us. And I have some real concerns about it. An emergency situation is being utilized to foster that intervention. And particularly mindful here is well-logged data. Well-logged data now is to be made available to agencies who do require it. But now, where we appear to be heading is making that absolutely available to everybody all in the public. And it is fraught with danger of intervention in our lives. It may not be quite as onerous as having to put cameras on all our law enforcement and make every bit of those pictures available to the public, but it is indeed problematic and a great invasion of personal lives and private property. So with such sweeping changes as may be embodied in these proposals here, where we're going to have not extensive discussion about them, I think we all ought to be wary, and I am going to be wary.
Senator Pavley, would you like to?
Just one or two comments. Appreciate spending the time on this because it's important and there's a history of importance. Yes, we're seeing all brand-new people here because I don't know where the others that could be here are. I'd like to see Director Nekadam here. He made a promise. I'd like to see Secretary of Resources John Laird here. This is an important issue because of the combination of challenges. We did not ask for or make up the problem with the EPA in discovering that 2,500 injection wells have maybe been placed too close to groundwater basins that could contaminate them. So they are starting down the road, working with the State Water Board. Dogger and the Water Board are spending a lot of time together on this and identifying which wells are the biggest problems. 23 have been shut down. They have a deadline of October. This discussion on all the money needed right now to meet those deadlines, I think, may be misplaced. There's vacancy positions that could be filled while we look at the longer term picture. And the wells that have been identified for high priority are already identified, and the State Water Board is engaged in this. So the funding and the people using some of the vacancies and others, I would suggest to you with that October deadline, if they're not already seriously engaged in this, there's no way they're going to make that deadline. And then the additional wells will be, I think there's a February deadline. We need to get their attention because I'm up to about 4 years of repeated discussions. The people here change.
Exactly.
But I haven't. And so we're having these repeated conversations. Is progress being made? Yes. Is it fast enough? No. Should we have been closing down those 2,500 wells until we test them and make sure they're safe? Probably so, in abundance of caution. But now when you open up the paper, you have another 3,600 wells. So people are watching what we do here as we ask the public to spend a lot of money for groundwater cleanup. A small investment in making sure we're not polluting our groundwater is cost-effective and critically important. And so, again, thank you to the staff for making those recommendations. I'm sure we'll have longer discussions on Friday in regards to this. It'll go into a conference committee.
All right.
I'll make a motion.
All right, in a moment. I have a request for a split vote. We'll start with item 4. Senator Nielsen, I assume that is the one that you would like separated out. The request that the state auditor review the funding and program requirements of the UIC program. Is that correct, Senator Nielsen? All right. Would you like to move that item? I will move item 4, Madam. All right. It has been moved. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? Aye. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, 3-0. That item is approved. We'll now move back to items 1, 2, 3, and 5. And Senator Pavley, if you want to describe them again or and move them.
1, 2, 3, and 5. I'll make a motion.
And let's add in, staff's recommendation is that we add in the LAO's supplemental language. The supplemental reporting language that you suggested.
Right. That's fine with me, and we'll have a discussion on the in-conference committee on the State Water Board's suggestion and some word change on concurrence. All right, and with that, I'll make a motion to do just that, 1, 2, 3, and 5 with the LAO suggested language.
All right, please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? No. Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right, those items are approved, 2-1. Thank you all. Oh, no, you're still here. All right, the Oil and Gas Data Management System, we already heard from the LAO, good report.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. Mary Winkley, Department of Technology. The Department of Technology has a new project approval process that is in the midst of rolling out. The Department of Conservation actually is one of the first departments who've made it through the first of 4 stages of project approval. The process for the remaining stages has not been fully defined by Department of Technology, and they are, in essence, though, moving forward into the process, work that used to be done after project approval. So in order to achieve what the staff recommendation is of moving through to project approval before awarding the contract, coming back to the legislature, you would actually need more than the $250,000 that you see here. That's the old process that used to exist, the FSR process. It no longer exists. It's being phased out. So if you want to achieve basically the analysis to be done before project approval by the legislature, you still are going to need more than the $250,000, but less than the $20 million. If you want to allow the department to work through the next fiscal year and in essence engage with a vendor and only give them 1 fiscal year of money, you will need to appropriate enough money for that contract because they can't enter into a contract without the legislature's authority. So you would need to approve a larger amount if what you're trying to achieve is allow them to have a contract but still come back to you.
The recommendation is to do a feasibility study only, sufficient funding to do that, and return in January. So how much do you need to do that?
So that would be $3.75 million instead of the $250. And the reason is the feasibility study report is phased out now. We have a new project approval process. It's a 4-stage process. What they're doing in the new process is requiring departments to do more of the analysis and more work before project approval. So work like changing your business processes that used to be done after the project was approved now has to be done before the project is approved. So in order to do that, the department will need funding to be able to encounter basically a contract to re-engineer the business processes.
Okay, I think we're going to, the recommendation will remain the approval of the $250,000 feasibility study only and return in January, and that will allow for some clarification of this after the action. All right?
So point of clarification, are you asking that they do the old feasibility study process that isn't going to exist, or the new process?
And I said we'll have further discussions on that as this moves through the process. Yeah. All right? So, further questions? All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion for the chair's recommendation.
All right. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolf?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen? Senator Pavley?
Aye.
All right. That is approved 2-1. All right. Let's move on to the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. We're looking at first the helicopter replacement.
And while they're coming up, that last example is just part of the challenge we have when it's a May budget proposal. How are we supposed to, in 1 week, figure out what to do? And so, again, that's an item for me. Without prejudice, do they need a new system? Should we keep investing in the old? No. But I want the signal sent that in January, you knew this was needed. Why do you wait for 1 week before we close out the May revise to bring a proposal in front of us? That's, you know, Jim and I agree on this one. It's very frustrating, whatever the perspective is. It's disrespectful. Unless there's some emergency that we couldn't have foreseen, data management. They couldn't supply how much water oil was using for April because they don't have the data management. So they've known for a year or 2 years that their system is not up to date. So again, without prejudice, if we would stop getting these things in May, we could have a more thoughtful discussion and get to a position where it would be better to, you know, easier to support.
I think the other issue is if there was a change in the procurement policy. I mean, it didn't happen yesterday. I mean, we really do need to get a more respectful requests, more thoroughly vetted than that. It's very frustrating as.
Yes, and there's many, right. It's not limited here, and I think I said that earlier on, but it's very frustrating. I haven't served on the budget subcommittee on this since I was in the assembly, and it was my ongoing mantra for 6 years as chair there. And people gradually got the hint that it was better to come forward. And then if it needs a policy discussion, there's plenty of time for someone to introduce a bill, right?
Well, that's the blessing of having more years to serve. Folks like us have knowledge of the past, and it's not in the void.
Maybe it's where we went to college that's, yeah.
All right, and with that, we're moving on to the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. We have some budget bill language with respect to helicopter replacement. Who's on?
Good morning, Ken Pimlott, Director, CAL FIRE. As you know, moving forward with the procurement process for replacing CAL FIRE's 12 helicopters, the procurement schedule as it was defined had the department and the Department of General Services bringing forward the procurement process in the spring of 2016. The staff recommendation with the procurement language or the amended language as defined does create procurement and operational challenges for the department, but we're certainly happy to work with the committee to see if we can come to some agreement on what would work for us.
Good, good. All right, is there any public comment on this issue? All right, hearing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, the following budget bill language has been. Yes, sir.
Motion option again. If the committee may entertain just approving the budget bill in concept, that would give us the opportunity to work with staff to find something that's tenable for.
Is there such a motion?
For
I'm not too hot on voting on concepts.
I don't think so. It's pretty specific.
And I'm fine with them working with the committee.
Well, just work with the committee. I mean, that's sort of understood, I think. It's pretty detailed. Last minute. All right, the motion is to approve the following budget bill language as submitted. Please call the roll.
Senator Wolk?
Aye.
Senator Nielsen?
Aye.
Senator Pavley?
Aye.
3-0, that is approved. Now, fireworks disposal.
Madam Chair, just a moment.
Yes. Senator Nielsen.
If the director could hold on just a moment, please. Director Pimlott, we were somewhat discussing personnel issues here before. Is anything currently going on relating to some of the personnel problems within the department that you could comment on? Any personnel issues, some of these things that have been bedeviling the department for a time? What's current?
Well, as you know, the department continues to work on personnel actions, which obviously, as they're going through the process, are confidential. If you're referring specifically to the issues at the Ione Academy that have been well publicized, obviously, we're working with the State Personnel Board, those particular employees that have appealed those actions. That's going through a public process or through the hearing process here over the next several months.
I see. Okay. I just wanted to flag that we continue to watch and monitor.
Thank you.